For over 600 years, one empire shaped continents, conquered cities, and rewrote. Lasting for more than 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire became one of the mightiest dynasties in human history.
The mighty Seljuk Empire collapsed under Mongol invasions.
Among these principalities was Osman, a descendant of the Kai tribe. In 1299, he founded a government. By 1326, under Osman's son Orhan, the Ottomans captured Bursa, turning it into their first great capital. Soon after, they conquered Byzantine territories around the Sea of Marmara, opening the path toward Europe. In 1453, Mehmed II, the Conqueror, took Constantinople, ending the Byzantine Empire, and Constantinople, renamed Istanbul, became the jewel of the empire, a city to rival Rome and Baghdad in glory. At its height, the empire stretched across Turkey, Greece, Egypt, Hungary, Syria.
If one period marked the pinnacle of Ottoman greatness, it was the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent. In 1521, Suleiman's armies stormed Belgrade, a key fortress at the gates of Europe. In 1526, the Ottomans crushed Hungary at the Battle of Mohács. By 1529, Ottoman banners reached Vienna. Suleiman was not only a sultan, he was a brilliant commander whose armies stretched Ottoman power across continents. Beyond land battles, Suleiman commanded the most powerful navy of his time, dominating the Mediterranean and Red Sea. From Cairo to Baghdad, from Algiers to Mecca, Ottoman control of seas and land routes reshaped global trade. Under Suleiman, the empire swelled to more than 15 million people, bound together under one rule. Suleiman's reign ushered in the golden age of Islam, with a legal system known as the Qanun, bringing order to a vast empire. The Ottomans pioneered medical practices such as vaccination, centuries before Europe embraced the technique.
Art and architecture thrived. Mosques, poetry, textiles, and music made Suleiman's empire a cradle of culture. Ottoman physicians refined instruments still used today. Scalpels, forceps, and catheters shaped modern medicine. Mathematicians, astronomers, and philosophers thrived under Suleiman, making Istanbul a magnet for knowledge. Architects built mosques and palaces that reshaped the skyline, defining Ottoman culture for centuries. Suleiman codified laws known as the Qanun, balancing Islamic tradition with secular authority. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived side by side, paying taxes and contributing to a society bound by law. Ottoman calligraphy, poetry, and music flourished, leaving a cultural legacy that still resonates today. Poets and philosophers found patronage in Suleiman's court, enriching the empire's intellectual life. To walk through Suleiman's Istanbul was to witness marble domes, bustling bazaars, and a city alive with ambition. But no empire escapes the weight of time. By the 17th century, cracks began to appear in the Ottoman colossus.
What had once seemed invincible now faced defeats that would slowly drain its power.
In 1683, the Ottomans marched once more on Vienna, seeking to break into the heart of Europe. But at Vienna, the tide turned. A coalition of European powers repelled the Ottoman army.
For the first time in centuries, Europe no longer trembled before the Crescent.
As Europe surged with scientific revolutions and new empires overseas, the Ottomans began to lag behind.
Ottoman tactics, once cutting-edge, grew outdated as Europe embraced gunpowder and modern armies.
Trade routes that once enriched the empire weakened, bypassed by Europe's oceanic discoveries.
The vast bureaucracy, once a source of strength, became rigid and weighed down by corruption.
Internal struggles and court intrigues deepened the empire's troubles.
Meanwhile, Europe's powers rose ever higher, claiming new lands and building empires overseas.
The empire that once ruled 3 continents was now called the sick man of Europe.
By the mid-19th century, reformers launched the Tanzimat, an ambitious attempt to modernize the empire. New schools and armies were created, seeking to match Europe's strength. But these reforms were fragile, often resisted by entrenched elites, and slow to bear fruit.
Meanwhile, the Balkans stirred with nationalism, straining Ottoman control.
By 1912 and 1913, the Balkan Wars stripped the empire of nearly all its European lands. The empire grew increasingly dependent on Europe, its economy tied to foreign loans and trade.
Foreign debt mounted, pushing the empire into economic crisis.
Even with reforms, the empire seemed trapped, too modern to remain old, too traditional to become new.
The Ottoman Empire stood on fragile ground, its survival dependent on outside powers. By the dawn of the 20th century, the empire was a shadow of itself, Europe's sick man in truth. In 1914, the world was plunged into war, and the Ottomans faced a choice that would seal their fate. The Ottomans joined Germany and Austria-Hungary, hoping victory might restore their fading power. Ottoman armies marched into battle across deserts, mountains, and seas.
From Arabia to Mesopotamia, the empire fought desperately to defend its lands.
In the Caucasus, Ottoman soldiers froze in bitter winters against Russian forces. At sea, Ottoman ships faced superior Allied navies, struggling to hold their ground.
Inside the empire, shortages and unrest grew as the war dragged on.
By 1918, Allied forces pushed deep into Ottoman lands. The empire was collapsing.
In October 1918, the Armistice of Mudros ended the war for the Ottomans, their lands divided among the victors.
The empire that once spanned continents was gone, carved up by foreign powers.
After the war, Allied troops marched into Istanbul, the heart of the empire under foreign boots. The Sultan remained, but powerless, no longer master of his own empire. In Anatolia, a new movement stirred, led by determined nationalists, intent on building a new Turkey. The Turkish War of Independence ignited, as nationalists fought to reclaim their land. Against all odds, the nationalists triumphed, forcing foreign armies to withdraw. In 1922, the centuries-old sultanate was abolished. The Ottoman dynasty ended.
In 1923, the Republic of Turkey was proclaimed, with a nationalist leader chosen as its first president.
Sweeping reforms transformed Turkey. Modern schools, new laws, and a secular state.
Turkey emerged from empire's ashes, a nation reborn.
Yet the Ottoman legacy endures, in law, art, architecture, and science.
Ottoman advances in medicine and science shaped the modern world.
Calligraphy, textiles, and music remain vibrant echoes of empire.
Istanbul still bears the grandeur of the Ottomans, a city bridging east and west.
The rise and fall of the Ottomans is not just the story of a dynasty, but of how power.
For more than 600 years, the Ottomans stood astride east and west. Empires fade, but their traces remain.